Picture a household earning $140,000 a year. Two working parents, two decent salaries, what most people would consider a solidly middle-class income. Now picture that same household at the end of every month, looking at their bank account, wondering where it all went. If that sounds familiar, you are not imagining it, and you are definitely not alone. I'm Max, your monkey in a business suit, and today we are going to talk about one of the most counterintuitive financial realities of 2026. Two incomes, in many cases, is not making your family richer. It is making you busier, more stressed, and in real discretionary terms, measurably poorer than a comparable single-income household from a generation ago. This is not a lifestyle take or a commentary on whether both parents should work. This is a structural, mathematical analysis of where the money actually goes and why so many dual-income households in 2026 feel like they are working twice as hard for half the financial breathing room. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly what is happening, why it is happening, and what you can actually do about it. Let us start with the number that makes this conversation so jarring when people first encounter it. The median dual-income household in 2026 earns approximately 75% more than the median single-income household. 75% more income, and yet survey after survey and budget spreadsheet after budget spreadsheet shows that dual-income families report less financial margin, less savings capacity, and more financial stress than their single-income counterparts earned relative to their era. How is that possible? The answer is that the second income does not arrive in your bank account as free money. It arrives pre-taxed, pre-expenses, and pre-committed to a set of costs that exist specifically because both parents are working, costs that a single-income household simply does not have. The single largest culprit is childcare, and the numbers here are genuinely shocking if you have not looked at them recently. The national average cost of full-time childcare for two children in 2026 sits somewhere between $36,000 and $48,000 per year, depending on the market and the type of care. In high cost of living cities, New York, San Francisco, Boston, Washington, D.C., families of four routinely report annual childcare bills of $50,000 or more. Now let us put that in context. The median individual income in the United States in 2026 is approximately $45,000. For a significant number of dual-income families, the entire second salary before taxes is worth less than the child care costs it is paying for. And here is the part that almost nobody accounts for in the initial calculation: that second salary is not taxed in isolation. In the United States, dual-income couples are often pushed into higher marginal tax brackets than they would be if the same combined income were earned by one person. The second income gets stacked on top of the first in many tax filing scenarios, meaning it is taxed at the highest marginal rate the household reaches, not the average rate, the marginal rate. So let us run the real math. A second income of $60,000 taxed at an effective marginal rate of around 32% when you include federal, state, and payroll taxes leaves roughly $41,000 in take-home pay. Subtract $40,000 in child care costs, and that second income is contributing approximately $1,000 per month to the household budget before we account for a single additional expense it generates. And at that point, you are essentially working a full-time job, 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, to net roughly the cost of a slightly above-average gym membership. Even I had to pause on that one, and I once spent 3 weeks negotiating with myself over whether a slightly larger bunch of bananas was worth switching trees entirely. The instinct to keep working is not wrong, but the assumption that the second income is doing what you think it is doing deserves a much harder look, because childcare is only part of the story. Working two jobs requires two of almost everything, and those costs add up in ways that are easy to overlook because each individual expense seems reasonable on its own. In 2026, the average annual cost of vehicle ownership, including car payments, insurance, maintenance, fuel, and parking, sits between $11,000 and $14,000 per vehicle. For a dual commuting household that needs two reliable cars, that is a $22,000 to $28,000 annual expense that a single income household, where one partner stays home, often reduces to one car or far lower usage costs. That difference alone can represent $15,000 or more per year in additional expenses that exist purely as a function of both parents working. Then there are the convenience costs, the expenses that accumulate because two working parents simply don't have the time to do things a household with more bandwidth would handle differently. Takeout and meal delivery instead of home cooking, paid cleaning services, after school programs, summer camps to cover school holidays, convenience grocery shopping at higher cost retailers because there is no bandwidth to plan efficiently. None of these are extravagances in isolation. They are rational responses to time scarcity, but collectively, they represent what researchers call the cost of working. And for dual income families, that cumulative cost can quietly consume 20, 30, even 40% of the second income before it contributes a single dollar to savings or investment. Add professional attire, work lunches, networking costs, and continuing education requirements, and the picture becomes even more compressed. The second income feels like a full paycheck, but it arrives with a pre-committed spending obligation attached that most families never sat down and honestly calculated. There is also a housing dimension to this cost of participation problem that deserves to be named directly. Dual income households do not just spend more on childcare and transportation, they also tend to pay a premium for housing in school districts where the quality of public education justifies the price. That school district premium is effectively another cost of working because it is driven by the need to provide quality care and education for children while both parents are employed full-time. And the mortgage or rent payment reflecting that location decision rarely gets included in the honest calculation of what the second income is actually costing the household each month. This is not a new observation. It just feels new because the numbers have gotten so much more extreme. Over 20 years ago, a bankruptcy law professor named Elizabeth Warren wrote a book called The Two-Income Trap, in which she made a provocative argument that the rise of dual-income families had not made American households more financially secure, it had made them more financially fragile. Her core insight was this: a single-income household has a safety net built into its structure. If the breadwinner loses their job, the stay-at-home partner can enter the workforce, immediately creating a new income stream that partially offsets the crisis. A dual-income household, by contrast, has already deployed both income sources. When one income disappears, the household expenses, the mortgage sized for two incomes, the child care required for both parents to work, the dual car payments, do not disappear with it. The result is that a dual-income household facing one job loss is not in the same position as a single-income household facing the same event. The dual-income household is often in a far worse position because its entire fixed expense structure was built on the assumption that both incomes would always be present. Warren argued that by competing for the same houses in the same school districts, dual-income families had simply bid up the price of the American middle-class life until a single income could no longer sustain it, and in doing so they had eliminated the safety valve that used to protect families from financial catastrophe. That argument was considered controversial in 2003. In 2026, with childcare at record highs, housing at record highs, and the dual expense burden larger than it has ever been, it reads less like a theory and more like a description of what millions of families are living right now. The risk profile of the dual income household is not just about monthly cash flow, it is about what happens when something goes wrong, and whether the household has any structural capacity to absorb that shock. Most dual income households in 2026 are operating with a margin of error that is dangerously thin, and they often do not realize it until a layoff, a medical bill, or a childcare disruption makes it suddenly and painfully visible. Now, here is where the two jungle monkeys come in, and I promise this analogy earns its place. Imagine two monkeys working side by side, both hauling bananas up the hill every single day. But every evening, the entire haul gets sorted into piles. Taxes take their cut, rent takes a bigger one. The babysitter monkey takes hers, two car payments come off the top, grocery delivery because neither of them had time to shop, and takeout because neither had time to cook. And when it is all divided up, both monkeys are sitting there staring at each other over a single slightly bruised banana. That is not a wealth-building operation. That is a very expensive, a very exhausting hamster wheel with a jungle aesthetic. So what do you actually do with this information? The goal of this video is not to tell you that one parent should stay home. That is a deeply personal decision with financial, professional, and lifestyle dimensions that go far beyond a spreadsheet. The goal is to make sure that whatever decision your household is making, you are making it with accurate information about what the second income is actually contributing. The first thing every dual income family should do is run what I call the second income audit. Take the lower of the two household incomes, subtract all taxes on that income at your marginal rate, then subtract every expense that exists specifically because that person is working: childcare, commuting costs, work clothing, convenience services, the second car. Whatever is left is the actual net contribution of that second income to your household financial position. For many families, this number will be significantly smaller than expected. For some, it will be negative, meaning the second income is currently costing the household money on a pure cash flow basis. That does not automatically mean stopping work is the right answer. Career continuity, retirement benefits, professional growth, and long-term income trajectory all have real value that a monthly cash flow calculation alone cannot fully capture. But it does mean that optimizing the cost structure around the second income is one of the highest leverage financial moves available to dual income families in 2026. Employer-sponsored dependent care (FSA) accounts allow families to pay for childcare with pre-tax dollars up to $5,000 per year, which is a meaningful but widely underused benefit. Flexible work arrangements that reduce commuting costs, geographic choices that lower both housing and childcare expenses, and a deliberate audit of which convenience costs are genuine necessities versus accumulated habits are all levers that can dramatically improve the second income, real contribution without requiring anyone to stop working. It is also worth doing this audit annually, not just once. As children age out of full-time childcare, the calculus shifts substantially. A second income that barely broke even when the kids were in daycare may become a genuinely powerful financial engine once that fixed cost drops away. The trap is not permanent, but you have to know you are in it before you can start building a plan to get out. The single most important shift a dual income household can make right now is moving from passive assumption to active calculation. Most families operate on the assumption that two incomes equal more security without ever verifying that the math actually supports that belief. Running the numbers once, honestly with every cost included, is often the moment everything finally makes sense. The deeper point is this: in 2026, the financial structure of a dual income household requires intentional management in a way that it simply did not a generation ago. The costs of participation have grown so much faster than wages that the second income net value is no longer automatically self-evident. It has to be calculated, protected, and optimized, or the treadmill just runs faster without moving you any further ahead. The two-income household became a trap not by design but by circumstance. The costs that used to be optional became necessary, the safety net that used to exist became the source of the risk, and the income that was supposed to create margin instead created more fixed obligations. Understanding that clearly, with real numbers and no illusions, is the first step to actually changing it. If this video gave you a clearer picture of your own household finances, hit subscribe, because every week on Monkey Money we bring you the financial analysis that explains why your money is behaving the way it is. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever actually run the numbers on what your second income nets after all the costs of working? The answers are always revealing, and I read every single one. I'll see you in the next video.